Hey guys, and welcome back to the Take One podcast. I'm Vale,
I'm Monish.
and we are so glad to have you guys here again this time around. So, after the first episode, people been asking what else we have to say. You guys talk for like almost 2 bloody hours, yapping only about the film industry, la this la. Well, I thought we should do what we said at the end, which is talk about films, short films, and we want to highlight filmmakers. So you say, well, there's only two of you. Well, he's a filmmaker, so he counts.
He's one too. He's one too.
Yeah. So the way we're gonna do it today is we're going to explore actually one of your short films, Monish, and that short film is one that you released quite recently called Where Sunflowers Bloom. Now, I could talk about it first, but I think it's better to let the man himself explain the short film. Maybe just give us a synopsis of the short film itself.
Okay, yeah, Where Sunflowers Bloom is about two friends who are basically going for a job interview together, and one of the friends sort of sabotages the other one. And basically, this is that kind of slow cinema style film where they explore sort of that forgiveness and working through that and guilt mostly, so it's one of those kind of films. And yeah.
All right. Now, of course, we have to start with the most generic of all questions, the mother of generic questions, right? Okay. What, who, or what was your inspiration for Where Sunflowers Bloom? Now, the inspiration could be maybe it's something in your real life or film or both, but we just like to know maybe what really clicked for you when you were thinking of this idea. Maybe something that happened to you in real life. I don't know. Just tell us what inspired you.
Well, I mean, the weird thing is, like, the story itself is from personal experience, but the aesthetic, if you will, the style in which it's done, comes from this filmmaker called Kogonada. So he's actually a filmmaker who I have explored a lot and everything.
And you
And
have a series on your channel just dedicated Koganada. Yeah, nah.
yeah, I have a slightly shameless amount of video essays on his films.
Yeah.
I've done a video essay on every single one of his films. Um, the most recent one was called A Big Bold Beautiful Journey, which is a giant mouthful, but it also was a flop, a pretty big one actually, and it had Margot Robbie and Colin Farrell in it. But it felt like the kind of film where he approached it more as a hired gun.
Mm.
It was not his film. He did not write the screenplay either,
Mm.
and the style felt so awkward
Yeah.
because there were dialogue scenes that really felt like him, but
Mm.
then it was punctuated by moments of random musical comedy.
I see.
So it felt very jarring to me.
Yeah.
But the aesthetic came from that film because I felt like
Mm.
if he had approached that film with his traditional style, I feel he would have done so much better. The only problem is it would have been more of an indie film instead of a blockbuster Hollywood style thing because you can't do indie with Margot Robbie and Colin Farrell too much,
Yeah.
so that was sort of the inspiration because I felt like I love his style so much that I wish he had done this film in that way, right? And then in real life, I felt like the story was actually something that happened to me, and I was the guy who got the resume got the resume sort of tampered with, and thankfully I got the job. So my story ended differently, but I do remember that it took me a long time to forgive the person who did it, and I do kind of wish I did forgive the person sooner. No, no, no. I mean, I'd rather not. It just he probably might see this anyway, but he knows, and it's cool. It's just that he didn't do it intentionally. In his case he thought I forgot my resume, and he just brought it in, and my resume was not the right resume because it was incomplete.
Ah,
And
pretty much like the film.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so the only difference in the film is I changed the fact that it was not intentional. So in this case, it was intentional, but he immediately sort of regrets that action and it carries on. So that was sort of how I just had to sort of combine a real life experience with what would work in a film.
That is very interesting how, a lot of real life and film. I think when we're making films, it's kind of interesting how a lot of real life and films tend to, like, it's almost, is it fair to say, do you think that a lot of the films that we watch, the films that we consume, so again, the Kogonada film that you mentioned, and many of his other films even, it's kind of interesting how these films are part of our real life in a sense, right? Like if someone asked you what inspired you, you wouldn't think, I don't think we would think in terms of like, oh, this is the IRL inspiration, this is the film inspiration. It's sort of like, no, this is what inspired me. It could even be something that's not film at all. So maybe while this is like adjacent to the short film, of course, were there any other, because there is also a very sort of a musical quality to the film, right? So is there any other like mixed media sort of inspiration, do you think, or is it just life as it happens, what we experience, that becomes inspiration, you think?
Well, I mean, for the different medias that could have inspired this, I do have a very ancient sort of music taste compared to my friends. I'm more of someone who likes to listen to jazz. Like I get more out of Miles David than I would out of Olivia Rodrigo. Sorry to fans. It's not a knock on her, by the way.
Five Olivia Rodrigo fans who are seeing this, I'm sorry, okay, for the five of
We have 50 now. But like it's got nothing to do with Olivia Rodrigo or anything. It's just I have a preference, right? And I also love yacht rock for some crazy reason. So strange. Yeah, even he thinks it's strange.
I'm just taken aback. I didn't see it coming.
I'm taken aback too, dude. But like I also like Elvis. I also like, those kinds of music. So I tend to always, I'm a creature of habit when it comes to music, and I like listening to movie soundtracks, which I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, what's your favorite movie soundtrack that you listen to more?
Favorite,
I know you
favorite.
like the Drive one, right? Same.
I do love the Drive one. I do love just the song selection in Drive. It's interesting because just in particular Drive is when I showed it to some of my friends, they thought it was weird actually. They thought the song selection was weird. They were like, what's this sort of synth sort of vibe going on? But I thought it fit perfectly, right? But it's one of those things. So favorite movie soundtrack, if we're just going off of soundtracks. Ooh, there's this Japanese film called Hanabi, which you did a video on, right? My friend introduced me to that movie back in college, and they loved it so much, and they were like, "Dude, you gotta watch this film." I watched it, my first Takeshi Kitano film, right? Yeah, and just the Joe Hisashi score, like Everlove and Thank You for Everything. Those tracks are so beautiful. Like immediately, I sound like such a pussy when I say it, but I want to cry every time I listen to them, and I have them in my car as part of my playlist. But I will usually skip it because I almost want to only hear it for special occasions. So I'll always skip it because I know I'm gonna feel some type of way, and I'm you can't feel emotional while you're driving your car, raging at the world, right? But I would say that's one of my favorites. But yeah, but since we're talking about, of course, the film and kind of what inspired you, I also want to maybe ask you, since you're talking about friendships and betrayal, was there a specific subject matter you're trying to tackle, or maybe a question you're trying to answer with this short film in particular?
Well, I mean, for me, it's mostly on guilt. Yeah, because guilt is like such a universal theme, right? And you can use it not just in a drama, but you can use it in romance, you can use it in action, you can use it in thrillers, sci-fi, whatever you want. And I think guilt is a unifying theme for everybody. But I often see friendships explore guilt as sort of a passing moment. It's more of like how they reconnect or what caused them to break up. But it's never about how each of them feels during that moment, right? And I feel like that's what I was trying to capture. And even though the during moment is very fleeting in my film, it feels like I think I explored it in a way that was impactful to me, and I hope that it reaches out to people in that way. I've gotten some decent comments on it that it feels relatable, but yeah, that's the hope lah.
Understand. No, that's true. That's true. Because I do think a lot of times when it comes to films, they are, how do we put this? Like, I think when it comes to films about friendships and this and that, I think certain times it's always about, like, they always treat, like, exactly like how you say, they treat there's always that obligatory friends break apart moment, right? It's almost the same with romance films. There's always has to be that one moment where, oh, we can't be together, and it's like it's always treated more like a cliche than it is in real life, where that's a big moment. But maybe even after you reconnect, it could mean that your friendship is not the same. Even it could change, it could alter. But yeah, so I think another thing I'd like to ask you. So you've made quite a number of films. I think at this point, it's quite a number actually, because you started back in 2023, right? So like with Diary of the Hungry Man to now, there's so many films that you've done. When you're making each film, I don't know, maybe I think you're like this in this regard, where I'm like this too, where I always have this mindset of I want my next film to be better than the last one. I think we all as filmmakers want to improve our craft as we go along. Was there any aspect of filmmaking or anything that you were actively trying to improve, or you felt like you want to highlight, maybe not even improve, but like you're good at this aspect, you really want to highlight it? Was there anything like that?
I mean, for me, like, yeah, like you said, definitely there's always the intention to want to like improve and be better in every aspect if you can. And I think for me, like, because right now it's apparently I'm counting it now in my head, and I think it's like 9 short films since 2023 that I've written and directed lah. Not counting the ones I've edited, but um, it's also about like taking a new step every time, and I've done a decent amount of genres to sort of see where my skill set lands.
Yes.
Yeah. Um,
Where do you think your skill set lands on?
honestly, dude, my guess is as good as yours right now. I mean, like, actually, there's a better question for maybe you, since you're more from an audience perspective.
Okay,
So,
fair,
and you've seen all of my films, so maybe what do you think?
I I personally think what I like about your works, and I think where I think your work sort of shines and your style of filmmaking shines, is really when you are slowing down the film. I think I told you this when we went to a film festival held in your college. Actually, I think yes, because I told you one thing that I think, because a lot, to be fair, there's not to talk bad about them, but they're students lah, they're learning lah, so there's nothing bad actually. It's just that one thing I notice when people are just starting out making films, they like to cut a lot, they like to cut moments. So if someone's talking, just the second the dialogue ends, they cut to another person, which is fair. It could work for certain scenes, but they do it for almost every scene. Everything. There's a cut here, there's a cut there. What I like about your work is that you linger, you let it breathe, and that is something I think comes, of course, like, with experience also, but also knowing when and where to let it breathe, and also to let it just sit there lah. And I think over the period of time, I think with Diary of a Hungry Man onwards, from where we are now, you've sort of, I think, kind of know your pacing and your timing. Because in my opinion, I think the pacing on this is really good, and I know you think it is slow, and I guess it is. Of course it is. I do believe, yeah, it holds on the scenes and the moments, but there's a nice flow to it. There's a nice flow to it, which I think comes from knowing your pacing, which comes from experience also lah. So each thing kind of develops. So I think your style really comes down to the human moments. I think that there are moments where people get to just be people and just get to express themselves as people, even in the most mundane of things, like for Hungry Man, for example. It's about food, but the thing is, it's really an allegory of like lost love and trying to move on, which is something that, first of all, I don't think a lot of people equate food with love, right? But the thing is, we love food though. But like, to be fair, logically speaking, yeah, we love food.
It's what sustains us.
Yeah,
It's what sustains us, man.
Yeah. What's that? Behold, man, drinking the river of life. Yeah. Nah.
I hope Daniel's watching this.
Daniel, I see you, bro. I see you. But yeah. So I think a lot of your work, the best part of it comes from it, where it's just people expressing themselves, even if it's like in their own way, you know. But yeah, but like, so when it came to filmmaking, was there any like specific element where you were like, okay lah, maybe the writing or your pacing or your editing, where you were like, okay, I want to maybe sharpen this, tighten this, or maybe even change this, anything like that?
I think for me, it's like I always approach it with like I should try to improve on all things, but particularly I wanted the coloring to improve. I really needed it to be better, and I worked for about 2 months just on coloring. I literally used my film as a like sort of experiment, and I went down a giant rabbit hole of coloring sort of exercises, basically film school YouTube lah. And I everyone says this is the right way to do it. That's the right way, and I had to sort of I watched all these videos and I learned one by one how to do, and I learned how to replicate it on different softwares just to sort of see the difference in how it can work. Also, this is the first film that I've actively, aside from Bebop, which is a film noir film I did, that I've actively worked on incorporating grain into the footage, which is an incredibly nerdy thing, by the way, for all of y'all who maybe are not so versed on the technical side. Which, by the way, is crazy that I'm saying this. You know what I mean? Like I'm like a freaking noob in terms of like technology, but like this is the first time I've actively tried to incorporate grain into my footage to feel like a more textured thing. Yeah, yeah, but it is a drama at the end of the day. But the coloring was so important to me because I felt like I wanted it to like really speak for the film, and I didn't want to just put some generic blue shadow thriller thing going on without any reason for it. Right. So yeah.
Of course, like going by like what we talked about with the technical side of things, right? You of course are coming more from a writing background, right? That's where you started, from writer director. So when you're writing the script for this particular short film, right, were you more guided by the plot that you had in your head, or are you usually guided by a certain feeling, like in the sense that, okay, so plot, the events of the story, from A to B to C what's going to happen, versus this feeling of like, okay, like again, capturing that guilt between friends. What really drives the script for you creatively?
Well, I mean, plot is important, I think, but I do think without knowing the emotion that you're trying to capture, plot feels very flat. You start feeling it more like an exercise. It feels more of like, look at how clever I am, instead of what actually the characters are going through and what you can make them feel. I've only just started, well, not just started, but I've always been drawn to like the non-linear narratives, and I feel it's an interesting perspective for a film, especially with a short film form, because a short film form only has X amount of minutes, right? At the end of the day, there's only X amount of minutes. So you are building a linear story that you could have, let's say, 15 pages on. That will likely hit a 30-minute film, depending on, we all know that kind of time jump. Huh? But if you're building a linear story, that could probably be 30 minutes. But if you're doing a non-linear story and you stack narratives on top one of another, that could maybe hit 15 if you know what you're doing. And for me, I think that's a powerful tool for all of us to have, because now you can tell longer stories with less time and still work within a format that isn't overbearing. So for me, I think, yeah, the plot's important lah, but without the feeling that drives it, yeah, there's nothing to really explore.
Okay. So with that being said, again, I think we're going down a bit of a writing rabbit hole. I do want to also ask you, so since we are, you know, a lot of our your short films are, I would say, quite human focused, right? How do you approach writing characters? Because I think, especially with a lot of younger filmmakers, right, they would like to know, younger filmmakers, younger writers, I think, I think writing, especially for characters, is a bit, some people are like, they feel one kind about it, like how do we write a good character, a character that people would want to see, a character that people want to root for, and making sure that the character also comes off the way that you intend, right? Like, instead of, like, for example, think of a film where a character is meant to be seen as villainous, but then comes off as, people start to idolize that character, how do we, of course, to add on to that, I don't think we can, of course, control what the audience feels, right, at the end of the day. But how do you approach writing characters? For example, let's get, like, for this film, right, we have the character that Lukman plays and Aizat plays, right? How do you approach writing the two of them specifically, would you say?
Well, I mean, the character Lukman plays is Adam, and the character Isaac plays is Shafiq, and the two of them their differences are in their clothing, because the way I structured their clothing is that Lukman's character has a little bit more of a lax feel. His sleeves are folded up, shirt untucked, and that was also a bit of a thing that Lukman had a bit of agency on. He was a bit more also talking to me about like how we can differentiate characters. So I think you have to have a good dialogue with your actors also when you're in that point. But from a writing standpoint, I think just ensuring the two of them are coming from different points gives you a moment of conflict that you can build on. But I feel also like for Aizat, for example, his character was much more prim and proper kind of guy. He's always long sleeves and folded in and everything. And we went on like a bit of a rabbit hole getting the shirts right. I bought 8 shirts just for Aizat, and which doesn't sound like a lot in the long form, but like you know, money flies, bro. Yeah, money flew out the window. Yeah, and we tried it on again and again. It just was not working. You know, either the color wasn't right, the size wasn't right, or the just it didn't. It looked either like he was a office worker or someone who got lost in Sports Direct, and it feels like it wasn't really gelling, right? And I needed to thread a line with it for both the characters between reality and fiction. And probably shouldn't say this, but at the same time I will, because it's funny. Because these guys are looking for a job in the film, right? And they're driving a Mercedes. Okay.
It's his father's Mercedes lah. It's not his Mercedes lah. Probably father's Mercedes lah. My head canon.
Yeah. So for me, I'm looking at that and I'm like, I think that's the running joke in the entire film. He's driving a Mercedes looking for a job. But for me, I think like just knowing the difference between your characters and ensuring that your characters actually want something is important, because coming from my background on a writing standpoint, I only ever got into it because I didn't know about anything else. But I see like other student filmmakers, they're like, okay, we are going to make this kind of character, and they'll be like, okay, guys, we're gonna do John Wick, and then we're going to make the film like I don't know, fucking like what some crazy film lah. We're going to do what James Bond could never do, and we're going to do what John Wick could never do. But what if John Wick was Tamil and James Bond was a girl? Right? We have that kind of
The dialogue will be like this. Come. I can give you a summary, bro. Okay. For the 5 or 6 Tamil fellas that are watching this, they'll get hype when this happens. It'll be like trailer, right? Like the movie. I can tell you what a Malaysian Indian John Wick would be like. He turn around, yeah, நாயை கொன்னுட்டல உன்னை நான் சும்மா விட மாட்டேன்டா எங்கடா போ நீ யாரா நீ நான் John Wick ரா. Then he pulls out the gun. Not John Wick. How would you Tamilize the name, if you think? How would you Tamilize the name?
First off, for everybody watching, I am a coconut. I don't exactly, almost nothing of what he said came across, but I kind of did connect the dots. I can kind of connect the dots that he's talking about a dog or his dog. Yeah. Or maybe that's just me being called Naya the whole time. That's what dog means, right? Okay. Cool. But, oh man, what would a Tamil John Wick be?
Something.
How do you say yeah in Tamil?
Yeah. Ama.
Dude, it's like the guy would just be like, are you John Wick? Ama.
Hey. Yeah. It's like, hey, Nida John Wick, Ama. You have to do the Keanu Reeves voice. Like, what's the line that he says? It's like, I'll kill them all. He's like, நான் உங்களை கொல்லுவேன் ஒருத்தனையும் ஒன்னொன்னா கொல்லுவேன்.
Or you can do like guns.
Yeah. Gun. துப்பாக்கி நிறைய துப்பாக்கி. Yeah, pretty much.
Stahelski, if you're watching, hire him.
See. No, but yeah, so you're talking about how there's just this trying to remake. I mean, it's even what we talked about in the first episode, where people, to be fair, I understand where they're coming from, where it's like, I like this thing, I want to make this thing because I like it, right? But where do you think people need to understand, like when it comes to creating a characterization, where yes, you can borrow elements, but you need to make your own? How would you say someone should make it their own from their inspiration?
I think the most important thing is to be honest with what you want to do. If you're just trying to make another John Wick, then just go into it lah. right? At this point, might as well, because I feel like if you're just pretending it's not John Wick, then the fella is in a black on black suit, like, which yeah, full on, and he's just like dressed up, and you're gonna be like, no, dude, how could you think it's John Wick? The fella, that one is.
They killed his cat.
So it's yeah, like someone who got inspired by John Wick / Obsession, it's like, and then the fella is wearing out, you know, and so for me that is like, I don't understand people's need to sort of, okay, maybe everyone wants to be original. I suppose that's probably why. Yeah, but I feel like, okay, if you are dressing your character up that way in such an identifiably iconic way, why run? But if you're trying to develop your own character, focus on the person first. In my opinion, focus on the person first. If you can get that person down and then put him in a bat suit and call him Flying Rat, you do that. But at least everyone can tell you it's inspired by Batman. But once they see what the character is like, maybe, just maybe, you might be on your own track, right? So I think there's always room for original characters to be created, and I think the way the movie industry is going right now, Star Wars and DC have been beaten at the box office by 2 original films. So we have a great opportunity for original characters. And I think also, this is a slight sidebar, but if you were to cast someone, right, and you tell them do you find it more difficult to describe a regular person to them than if you're going to do, like, say, one of your roles as a hitman or something? Do you find it more difficult to describe to them?
Okay, first of all, that's a brilliant question, because I completely feel that, right? See, when you are writing, I think, a character that's like a hitman or like some action guy, horror dude, whatever, like, zombie killer 9000, whatever, right? like some doom guy type shit. It's easy to explain it because I think people already have a preconceived notion of what those things are. They've seen enough media, they kind of understand. If I tell someone, okay, man, you're gonna play like a zombie killer, right? You're gonna have like an axe for a hand. People are gonna think, oh, Ash versus Evil Dead. Okay, I know that. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know what that feels like. I know what that is. And I also think it's such a big image that people are like, wow, assassin lah, oh, killer lah, okay, I see it now. Actually, to be fair, they may not see it. They think they see it. They think they see it because it's such a big idea, but really they don't know if whatever nuance you wrote for a character, you still have to explain that. But if you tell someone you're playing a hitman, they have an idea. They'll pretend. They'll be like, oh, can lah. Say you're playing a gangster, can lah. Yeah, I know gangster. Yeah, But if you say, hey, you're playing a guy who's like searching for a job, the problem is, and I think even with experienced actors, they might just be tempted to play themselves, which, to be fair, could work, but maybe certain idiosyncrasies or nuances that you write, you have to explain a lot to them, because it's their mind, they might think, oh, so this is a regular guy lah. I can play. I'm a regular guy. Fuck it lah. I play myself. But I think you then have to stop them. Be like, no. Like, maybe you can even tell me what were some of your challenges trying to describe certain idiosyncrasies or nuances to Lukman and Aizat, and maybe, like you mentioned, Lukman added some stuff. Maybe what they also added to your writing.
Well, I mean, first thing is I know them both quite well, so that helps when I'm writing. And okay, with Lukman, he tends to have a lot more of how do I put this? He's a lot more expressive, and I feel that if I lean more into that as a character, it's easy to sell it to him, because everyone knows what it's like to find a job. Okay, we're all looking out, and the job market's not exactly fun. So it was an easy sell on that point. They were immediately in because they all knew that feeling very well. It's just what they were doing that was the thing. Like Aizat's resume, for example, is actually derived from his actual resume. Like, it's his actual resume that I took, and with his permission, of course. And
so anyone looking to hire,
yeah, and and I basically I IT'd it. That's how I would put it. I IT'd it because he's supposed to be applying for an IT firm. And Isaac is not an IT student. So that's all I did. And so that picture is all him. And Isaac actually decided on his own character's last name and everything. So if you all want to know about why that is why the way it is, talk to him. I don't know. I'm just a typist in that equation. But I feel giving the actors a bit of agency over their own characters from this point, because this is a more human, like, I want it to feel honest. So if it's just me holding all of it, it doesn't quite work, because I might as well act, which I can't, by the way. But so at least giving Aizat and Lukman their own personal tethers, if I were to describe it that way, is a much better way to get into this story, because it's like now it's them playing characters they co-created, and they know within the story I've built for them. Right? So I think for me, that's just what I want to do. And I think at least with a film like Sunflowers, I have to be a bit more delicate the way I handle things. I can't quite say like, all right, guys, you're going to play assassins. The moment I say that, we all have an idea of who we want to play. So yeah, it's just about describing a person. I do tend to see sometimes in the actors' eyes that they're a bit afraid when I start describing a person, because they don't know where to latch on to. That's my only thing. But once I give them more context, I feel that slowly gives them.
What do you think usually helps people? Okay. What do you think usually helps people latch on? Is it maybe a backstory? Because I've had actors ask me to write entire bios for the guy. Like yeah. Like I had a certain person who I won't name, I won't out yet. Is a friend of ours, and for the first time he's acting, so he was, I guess, nervous, and he was like, okay, who is this guy though? And I gave a short back. I wrote like a very short one. He's like, yeah, but like I need more though. So I wrote. He kept asking me to the point that I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I wrote a whole ass bio. I wrote a whole ass bio, man. Like age, where the guy came from. I wrote like a mini short story about the character, and I gave it to him almost like a, nah, you want your backstory right here? I throw at you. And guess what? Then he's like, oh, cool, man, thanks. So he needed that. So what do you usually have to give them that you think like it helps them latch on quite, not quickly lah, but it really helps them sort of grab it quite nicely?
So I had no idea that you worked with Daniel Day-Lewis. I mean, that should be this podcast title. As far, I mean, oh my goodness, he did it once with Vel and retired. He said, I'll never get a better experience. He wrote a bio for me. Okay, for me, Aizat is actually a very big reader. So he's a very voracious reader, I must say, very, very big reader. Like, he treats books incredibly well, and he understands the story structure very, very intuitively from a reading standpoint. So I sort of approach it that way, and once he reads the script, he sort of connects the dots on his own. With Lukman, I sort of connected to more contemporary issues. At that time, he had not yet looked through the script and had no idea about the story. So I asked him, I was like, what do you think about the job market? And Lukman, if you're watching, and if everyone knows Lukman, he will immediately come up with a very passionate answer regarding the state of the job market. Oh, you could fill 3 podcasts with that. And I also described how people would react and how people would have treated. And, Lukman's been very outspoken about these things. So I knew that was a point of interest for him. And the moment he was like, why, is that in the film? And I was like, yep, that is in the film. And he read the script and he was cool. And we were in on it. And so that actually was how they got in. And if I may just add a little small sidebar, I actually rewrote the ending 1 week before the film was finished. So we were mid-shoot already, and I rewrote the ending there. Only out of the fact that because we had unfortunately too little time, and we had another shoot that we were going to shoot for another film. Right. So it was very slow, very little amount of time that we could use to sort of get it done. And eventually we got the ending we wanted. We still saved it, but unfortunately we had to cut out 3 different pages of it. And there's actually 2 scenes of deleted footage that I have not included in the Sunflowers film. It would be a 20-minute film if not. but the Mohnish card. But they were removed only out of quality assurance because Lukman and Aizat actually made those scenes redundant by improving on their third scene. So they introduced their characters themselves. So the first two scenes were introductions to their characters respectively. But then I felt the third scene, just the way their conversation went, you know who is who.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So there was no need to add an extra 2 minutes to everybody's lives. Yeah. But yeah,
All right, okay. All right, so characters are one thing, writing characters, but then with characters comes, of course, I think with some people this is like almost dreaded dialogue. Okay, so writing dialogue. So I would like to ask a very simple question. What is your approach to writing dialogue for this short film? But I say just in general as well, but especially maybe for this short film in case you changed up your approach. But if you haven't, just what's your approach to writing dialogue?
I think I try to avoid expositionary dialogue. I don't want to tell the audience with dialogue if I can help it. Only because they have eyes and they can see. Otherwise, we wouldn't be watching the film, right? Yes, and of course, there's that rule: show don't tell and whatnot. Yeah, so there's all those things. So for me, approaching dialogue, I'm inspired more by like actually, I find a lot of great dialogue in female filmmakers. Yeah, because I feel like the male filmmakers have a lot of tendencies towards yes, and you either have someone who is like a filmmaker where they're talking too much before the action starts, or you have John Woo who basically dances with the action. There's no need for dialogue with him, right? But I feel like I've studied films by Greta Gerwig. I've studied films by Catherine Bigelow because she also tackles a lot of action forward things, and also filmmaker Agnes Varda. She's also another great filmmaker that I looked at for inspiration with dialogue when it came to this film, because this film's dialogue needed to be less is more approach, because the dialogue needed to be sparse so that we can focus more on the visuals, the visual language of the film, if you will. Yeah, so that's my approach really.
In that regard, usually people, I mean, we know this, a lot of people, a lot of, I think, even fellow filmmakers talk to me, and their biggest concern is dialogue. Why do you think dialogue tends to be a sort of sticking point with people? Like, because you would think, right, with an audiovisual medium like film, that maybe what kind of camera, and these are concerns, like what kind of camera we use, what kind of lens, all of these are concerns. How are we going to edit this? Maybe is there any VFX work? But I notice a lot of people, like, they are very cautious, I guess is a nice way to put it, when it comes to dialogue. Why do you think that is? Where do you think they are hitting a wall, and maybe what kind of advice you'd give them to climb over that wall?
Yeah, I mean, dialogue can seem a little bit scary sometimes, and I think also you may be aware of the fact that sometimes the dialogue won't land the way you want it to, and then you'll be afraid that it takes your film off tilt and it goes off a different place. And I think for me, I've always enjoyed films with dialogue. I've always enjoyed films without dialogue. There's always a room for both. But I think when it comes to writing dialogue, I don't necessarily see this as the only approach, but I see this as a way of like understanding, because like in Malaysia we have such a wide range of dialogues. Shall we put it that way? We have so many languages, so many dialects, so it can get confusing. But I think as long as you ground the dialogue in words that sound realistic sometimes for the characters to be saying, and if it's the language that you read, think, and feel in, I think at least you have enough authority to write in it. So as long as it sounds okay to you and you read it aloud, which is kind of awkward from some time to time, you're reading to yourself. I can tell you for sure my parents think I was crazy. For sure, because I'm just writing it and I'm reading it to myself in like a dramatic, very non-actor way, and it just becomes very like, how do I put it? They're very concerned. Yeah. I've yet to wonder if that concern has waned, but I don't think it has. I think the important thing is having a read of your own dialogue. If it sounds silly to you, it will probably sound silly to others. If it doesn't sound silly to you, others may not get it immediately, but you will be able to explain to them why it works. So at the very least, your dialogue should be truthful to what you feel is right. Casting is the next battle, right?
That is true. That is true. That's very true, because I think a lot of the time people, when we are writing, we have a specific person in mind, right? We think, okay, this is the guy I'm writing, right? Again, I think it also happens with films where, you have a certain inspiration. So you're writing as that person, right? But then when you cast someone, they are not that person. They're their own person. They may have a different way of, the different intonation, different way of speaking, the different way of putting the words together, right? And yeah, I definitely think casting is part of it. But especially with a lot of your short films, or what I do see is like what you say. You tend to not go with expository dialogue, which I appreciate. Because I personally think it's quite insulting when the film has to grind to a halt to tell you.
I will say though, some people have told me that it's a little bit confusing if I don't explain things in the film, and I don't know if that's a me problem or
If let's say, where would you strike the balance?
The thing is, I just feel so icky treating the audience like they're idiots. I just wish that I didn't have to explain a lot of things, because if I'm explaining it, and I make video essays as well, if I'm explaining something, I might as well do a video essay. I don't want to express with a film, because it's like I might as well just do a video essay, right? So I think like at least maybe I need to learn how to draw the line a little bit better. But sometimes I think I have to get another person to read it, only because I feel like I understand everything about my story.
That is true.
But a stranger reading it is like, what in God's name are you scribbling in this nonsense? Who is Shafiq? Why is he? What is wrong with you? Like at least they have that reaction. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't connect those dots. And I have actually got an interesting little anecdote. I don't think I've ever mentioned that I have a reading group for my scripts. It's not really that formal, but I choose people who have no interest whatsoever in film.
No wonder I wasn't invited.
No, 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 no. If not, I would have definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like maybe the balance now should be I get people who are interested in there.
That's fair. So you can kind of see.
Yeah. Now these people, they're not going to see this, so it's totally fine. These people, they are. How do I put this nicely? They're from the corporate way of life. Put it that way,
Okay.
and they're very much more into the business thing, and they're all about the cash flow and all that good stuff, and they have absolutely no interest in whether I make a film today, tomorrow, or the end of the world. They have no interest in what film is playing in the cinema. They have absolutely got no interest in all of that. They couldn't be less interested. They are, in fact, inconvenienced when I send them a script. And my thing is, I usually buy them a coffee. That's usually the way it works.
Fair.
Yeah. So, and they read it for me on the spot. Yeah, and the feedback I get is often layered with a beautiful a melody. It's like poetry, really. The insults. They'll tell me how, like, they'll be like, this part, right? It's really great, but honestly, when you look at it again, I realize how did you pass English, bro? Like, like they would tell me that to my face, and I kind of appreciate the honesty, but also I know that they're trying to just get a rise out of me to see if I care about the story. And it's a good little relationship. I've purposely kept them separate from any film related things, because I feel like to be honest, they have no interest. They couldn't care less anyway. Even if I invited them, they wouldn't come. So for me, it's like having.
Shout out to the group. Shout out to you guys.
Y'all aren't going to see this, but alright lah. Lots of love, lots of love. But having people give you that kind of unfiltered feedback when they don't understand something is really important, I think, sometimes. Now, I do think you should get people who actually care, but I'm stuck with this life. But maybe I'll find a better balance by sending it to other filmmakers to get a opinion. But yeah, Vel, what do you think about how you write your...
I think when it comes to writing scripts, writing dialogue, I think again, since this is more focused on your end, I won't go too far into mine. Maybe we do that for my episode, Sila, when that is. I also don't know.
A real episode.
No, but I do think I do agree with you, where in the sense that when it comes to writing dialogue, language especially, I think people's concern is that they are, how do you put this? They are not, how do you say, they're not honest to themselves a lot of the times. And I think that's where the struggle really is, right? Because I talk a certain way. It's actually exactly what Sharvin said in episode 1, so you can go back and watch that. Or if you have, well, you know, right? Where people are not honest with how they talk, right? 'Cause I have a certain way of talking, right? To some people, I sound like some mat sale fella, to be honest. Like, people are like, what the hell, you sound like this? This is how you actually talk, right? And to some people, I sound very bloody Indian. So, it depends lah, it depends, honestly. But I use maybe certain words that other people don't use, right? And I use them in my script because that's how I talk. But people don't talk like that. But I do agree where I think is if you own it, people can feel it when they know the dialogue is coming from you. Like it's natural. It's not manufactured. It's not like I'm gonna put some generic line of "Get out of the car. This is my house." If you cool though.
Come on, you all can't lie and say
Yeah
this, right?
lah. No, but yeah.
I can't tell you how many times it would have been like, no, I'll be back.
Yeah, it's exactly. You've been back enough. I'll be back. No, but like it's kind of funny lah. Like when you look at this sort of thing. So when we are also of course talking about scripts and writing, I also want to ask you, working with actors and all that, you've mentioned quite a bit about how you talk with, especially with, Lukman and Aizar and all that. But acting and actors aside, how would you describe your style and approach to filmmaking, and how would you say that is translated in Where Sunflowers Bloom?
Okay, so I mean, where sunflowers bloom for me is a little bit of a reset. I feel like I from time to time need to do a bit of a reset filmmaking wise. Like Hungry Man was in a way a start, and then after that, I did Diary of the Wolf, Morning Bar, Bebop, and Highball all in the same year, and that was quite exhausting for anyone. And we also shot Maelstrom in the same year. Yeah, and then it came out the following year, which was another exhausting one. Not in the projects itself, but the yeah, because I shot Maelstrom while I was still editing Highball.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
because it was like,
and I shot Highball while I was still editing Bebop. Yeah. So and then I was writing Bebop while I was editing Wolf. So that was
there's no.
yeah. And so I needed a bit of a reset after that with Sunflowers because it's a film that I feel comes back to my original film style, which was starting with slow cinema. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing for a film to be slow, but I always admired short films that were slow because you're risking a lot in terms of your runtime. Fast paced short films, you can get a lot done. But a slow short film, you really have to pick your topic. Otherwise, you've just wasted 18 minutes. Right? So, yeah.
No, that's very true in terms of, like, knowing how to first of all pace yourself. I do think us as filmmakers sometimes we get very excited and we're like, okay, pump it up. Like when I look back on it, I also think it depends on this one. I do want to ask you whether you feel this now, because with my end on myself, my projects, and I think also I'm speaking for Sharvin, but he's told me this, so I'm not speaking for him. I'm telling you what he said and what I've spoken about. It's just that a lot of our works now, from when we started to now, has grown in scale, so we can't pump them out quite as fast as we used to, because you want to do more, maybe larger stories. You want to have bigger, because before this, a lot of my short films also, a lot of them are like narrations, and then there's visuals playing on, so you can do that quite quickly lah. You can film 1-2 days, you record the narration, you got a short film lah. But if you're doing one with a lot of dialogue, okay, then there's separate dubbing days. Then you have how many different characters. Then you have a completed arc from start to finish. You don't end on some ambiguous note. You want to complete the arc. It will take time. It will easily go 18-20 minutes, and you have like several different actors. So it is tough sometimes. You have to pace yourself. You have to get to a point where you're like, okay lah, once a year, maybe twice a year, I'll do once or twice in a year, I'll do a short film. Yeah, because they grow. But okay lah, no, I do understand in terms of like your filmmaking style and whatnot, in terms of like slow cinema. But like, also, since we're talking about filmmaking style, again, bringing back to the fact that since you're the writer director, since you're coming from that background, how do you express yourself visually to, let's say, the DOP of a project, or like whoever's filming it, right? How do you make them see what you see? Like for example, a lot of the visuals in the short film, right? Like them in their car sitting, maybe that's a simple one, but like in the office where there's that tension that you're building up with the visuals. Now a lot of that of course can be given to editing and sound design, but of course just the visuals are the building blocks of that. How do you communicate that with someone even when you yourself do not come from that background?
Right. I mean, okay, so this I probably may not have mentioned, but we shot a short film prior to Sunflowers called Techno, which actually premiered in Take One. So that short film, while we were shooting it, we actually simultaneously were doing a storyboard for this film. Because it was the same location, right? And the location was only going to be available to us during that certain period, so we had to, how do I say, prepare for one shoot while shooting another film, which was lovely lah. But and I only kept that sort of thing between me and my DOP, who was not my DOP for Techno, so he was available enough to help out with that. And Lukman, of course, is the main character for Techno, so he was able to instantly connect to that easily. And Aizat works in that office. So Aizat knows the space better than I do, right? So for me, it's like, as long as I find a space that everybody understands and we know our way around, we can instantly be able to get our bearings very fast. But to establish a visual style is because I looked at how Techno was colored, and I didn't want it to be so depressing in Sunflowers. And I was aiming for more of a filmic coloring style this time, if that came across. So I feel like with Sunflowers, at the very least, I wanted the office to feel like a decent, nice place. And it's just that it felt cold to people because of how the characters never actually speak to one another there. Lukman and Aizat have never had a single line of dialogue in the office. They only speak everywhere else. So that was for me how I would establish the visual style. And coloring wise, especially, I wanted the film to go from a more drab coloring to, well, not drab, I suppose, not overly saturated. Washed out coloring to a more saturated coloring to tell more of a story of, like, to represent the intensity of emotion that was coming their way. So I hope that came across. That may sound incredibly nerdy and like, who the fuck is this guy and what is he smoking? But I just kind of like, filmmakers, I think Vel will relate. They love to put these little strokes of genius. I don't know if it's genius. Strokes of like color. Right? Strokes of color that nobody's going to care about but them. And this is one of those lah for me.
No, but that's very true what you said, where filmmakers, we like to add our own stuff, right? And I think, okay, as much as we talk about visuals, we also have to mention audio, because there is a section in the short film where they're listening to this song and Aizat starts vibing to this. Like this man, he's like, he does. I recreate it at times. I just randomly I go like.
I really hope Aizat sees this.
I do this. Aizat, I love your rhythmic quality to your head banging.
We should get him on to tell us about it.
Yes. So what was your approach? You know, did you study the masters? Were you like, was it like a Michael Jackson, like, kind of thing? But yeah, no. So, but there's a section where they go to this music cafe, which do we also want to expose to people that where the music? Sure. So the music cafe is his house. It's in his house, guys.
Just to be clear, it's not an actual music cafe. Just
Yeah. Don't come trying to visit this man. Be like, hey, music cafe. I want to see the spot lah. No. Please. The man doesn't live in a music cafe. It's more like he made his house. You don't need to know the full details. Okay. Anyway, so, but yeah, there's a scene where they're at the music cafe and he starts vibing and Lukman's there. The song that's used there, I was surprised to find out, is free to use. I swear to God, the song sounds so good. Because back then, right, like you guys need to understand, like when we as filmmakers, we want to use certain needle drops or musical cues, we can't use copyrighted music, guys. We can't. No matter how much we want to, we may love a certain track from a movie and we're like, Oh my god, could you imagine if this, like you mentioned Drive. Do you know how many times I shoot like a night drive scene and I'm like, imagine night call hits. Do, 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 do. I do edits of it on my own, that I show to no one, and I just see it like an absolute madman. I'm just like, so beautiful.
So now we have to release the Unpalagan cut. Ah!
Hey, come on now. But yeah, but the song is free to use, and it's very interesting because I will say, free to use music nowadays, like there's some real gems, but you do have to dig. You have to dig to find them. But when you do find them, there's some really good songs. Can you maybe walk us through like finding the right song for that moment?
Okay, so we all know Kevin MacLeod is the GOAT lah. And yes, this is the first time I'm saying that. Now, it is important to note like that we don't have anything against non-copyrighted music, but some of it do be sounding shit.
Yes.
Yeah. And you do have to go through a inordinate amount that all sounds like the same damn song. Sometimes. Now, Kevin MacLeod has been a star shining in a very dark universe. But it's like he's the only fella who's happy during the quiet rapture. It's that kind of feeling. And then I was going through, like, all these non-copyright songs, and I'm thinking, like, oh my god, how? It's actually part of the reason I've never done a needle drop in any film. Just because there is just no song that works. And Lewis, who is also my composer on this film, he has done a good job in making certain soundtracks for us. But also his resources are limited to a sense that he can't sing like the person you are hearing in the film. And there's just, that's okay because his piano tune is still the main theme of the song, of the whole film. But the song that we use here is a grooving sort of 70s music song. And it's called Now I'm Ready. That's the song. Yeah. And I've listened to that song too many times because I've edited the film. And the original dance sequence is 9 minutes long. Full. 9 minutes of him. Bro, Izat had I can't remember exactly, but I do believe Izat had a bit of a backache after that. I can see it. But we also do know that Lukman is quite an accomplished dancer on his own. Yes. One of the regrets I would say I have low key is we didn't get Lukman to do a dance. But to be fair, next one. But he's not. Well, you know what? But we can do it like a thriller type thing. Yeah, with the burning car at the back. But the thing is, I instructed Lukman specifically not to dance the way as if he was comfortable. I wanted the body language to be different. Yeah. He looked like very uncomfortable at least.
Can you walk me through directing that scene? How was it like?
Oh my god, Lukman, if you are watching, you know what I'm talking about now. So, directing that scene was not an ordeal, but it was a moment in time that I just wondered if the whole world tuned out, because I was okay. So Izat for the actual scene, he's actually listening to the music.
Okay.
He's actually, those headphones work.
Oh, they work.
Okay. Yeah.
So
He's actually listening to the music for real, so he can't hear a word I'm talking about, and the music is blasted on, right? And we can't play the music out loud because Lukman has dialogue.
Right.
So we have to find a way for Izat to actually dance while doing that. So we had to only play the music for Izat. Now Lukman is not actually listening to anything.
Right.
And I'm giving him instructions on how to not dance.
Right.
And he's staying silent the entire time, acting as if he doesn't hear me. And then I say, Lukman, did you get all that? Yeah, let's do it. And action. Wait, what do I do? He said that not once, not twice, but 3 times. I have the behind the scenes to prove it, and it's partially posted on my Instagram on Mohnish. You can see it. It literally opens with me swearing because I was like, is he looking at me? He's looking at me. And he's like, wait, what do I do? And to be fair, it was a long day.
Yes.
We were all checked out after a while.
Yeah.
But I just was like, I never not really cared about being heard until that moment. I was like, dude, he's really not hearing me. And
bro, there's any time I want you to lock in.
And I don't know what was the funniest part, him not hearing me, or Isaac deciding to dance before I said action. Oh, no, to be fair, he wanted to keep the continuity there. So I said fine. But Isaac was just dancing the entire time while I was trying to get Lukman. So I didn't actually call cut. And Isaac was just going on. Bro, he had a workout. Isaac did a great job. He had a workout. Lukman also did a great job once he acknowledged me. Like, I appreciate the contribution. And he acknowledged me finally, my presence, which is nice. I've never needed to be acknowledged in that way until then. He created new form of trauma. But yeah, that scene was definitely a lot of fun sometimes. And also we actually had more than 15 shots for that scene. But we chose to do most of the shots in one single take, which you will see prior to the dance sequence. They just walk in and out of camera, where we just decided to just stay in one angle. Not only for time purposes, but I also felt like too many cuts would ruin the flow. Yeah. And also, it's my Tamil movie moment. You know, I'm not like, I look a certain way, but I'm still Indian to some degree. I hope. Coconut. But I just wanted to try. Yeah.
Still counts. Hell yeah. Alright. No, but yeah, that's okay. When I saw that sequence, for me, what was so interesting is that the contrast between that scene and the earlier scenes, right? Not just visually, but like also energetically.
Actually, I do have a question. Since you can be said to be the audience perspective, yeah. Okay. How did you react when that scene came out? Because I don't believe I teed it up in any way, shape, or form.
Okay. So here's the thing. I mean, on one hand, I have seen the promo material, so I know that scene is coming. But the way it came, I really, on one hand, I mean, I really liked it. Of course, it was a bit of, for me, it's a change of pace. But I don't think I don't think the change is abrupt. It's abrupt in the right way, not the wrong way. Yes. Because I think it's because how you edited it, where before, at first, right, they're at the place, Piccadilly, in case anyone wants to know. Yeah, they're eating the buns and they're talking, and then he says, let's go to this place, and then he walks, and then it slowly dissolves into the road that's right outside of here. But there you go. Docks his location now, okay? But it slowly transitions to that. You hold the shot and then it shows the interior. So it's the way that you've sort of edited it that it doesn't make it like a sudden whiplash of like, what the hell is going on? It's more like, oh, okay. But when they start dancing, it's awkward in the right measure. I believe lah, because it's like, again, we know that he screwed his friend over, right? And his friend in that moment, we believe, is being completely genuine, being like, hey man, like I wanna like let loose, I wanna have some fun, let's go to this place, right? And you can see just the discomfort in stewing in Lukman's face, where he's just there like uncomfortably shimmying. If you see Lukman, the man can dance. He's uninhibited. He lets go, but he's so.
There's a Tamil man waiting in there somewhere.
There is a true Indian. That man is more Indian than I am. He's more Tamil than I am. I swear to God. Lukman, if you're watching this, you are honorary Indian, man. I give you, man, the citizenship or whatever it is that you give. The melanin I give to you. Okay, I'm not sure I'm gonna keep that. But okay. But I do think it's teed up quite well, in my opinion. I don't think it's abrupt in a bad way. I think it's abrupt in a good way. I don't think abrupt is the right word. It's a nice transition. That's the way I put it.
Actually, there's something I wanted to say about the transition that you mentioned now. I used a momentary lapse of Spanish music in there. If you would remember, there is a transition between those scenes that like you were talking about. The music that's playing is a Spanish song. Oh. Yeah, and I wanted for it to signify like it was a change of language, that we're going into a different way of. Okay. Yeah, like again, one of those nerdy things none of you give a shit about, but I care. Yes. Okay, I just thought it might be an interesting anecdote to share. I didn't really think about it until now. So it's a Spanish song that actually starts when the bun eating scene ends and they're walking off. The song starts. It's a Spanish song that plays and brings us into the bar / music cafe place, and like it plays over that montage that leads us in. So that was my hope to signify a change of pace
Right.
with a different language for one.
Okay. I just know there is a change in music. I didn't know it's Spanish, but I did know that there was that sort of a musical shift in the tone. So I was like, okay, for me, it felt more nostalgic. I would say that. I say visually also the film it adds. Of course, I think you added a bit of the bloom in post, yeah, halation, which adds just that nostalgic quality. It's almost like they're retreating into the past in a way.
And also this again is another nerdy thing. The grain is different in that film. In that part of the film. So the whole film is actually 35 millimeter, but in that one the grain is 65 millimeter with an extra contrast to make it more visible. So again, y'all probably think I'm insane. You probably didn't give two shits, but I just thought it'd be nice to air it out.
I love that. I love that. That's amazing. Wow. Different grain. I've actually never tried that. I've actually never tried. So I'm gonna try that after this. I'm gonna try that after this. Okay. Thanks for that. Okay. But yeah, no, I think just visually, like I love the difference in the two sections, right? Because it feels for me, like at least as an audience, is like the future seems not, I wouldn't say dark per se, but more stripped out of life, right? It's very clinical, it's very sort of drab in a sense, while the past is this colorful place that they retreat to, and they get to live and whatnot. That's very nice. And I will say one thing, when it comes to your short films, and especially this one and a few others even, there's a lot of mixed elements which I do want to ask you about, where it seems like a slice of life. It seems like it's about human connection. And then at the end or at some point there's sudden acts of violence. And and I'll be honest, I do think you're the only person I know who does that. I genuinely think I've watched a shit ton of short films. I don't know anyone else who does that. Like at some point, someone gets killed in his short film. Someone has to die. This man might be like just like I believe like you just have like a rostrum of like of filmmakers where you're like, okay, yeah, okay, so he dies now. I'm gonna kill him now. I've had enough of his ass. I need to see him get stabbed. Because Lukman has died what, twice now? Twice, right? So could you explain to me, where did you come up with these combination of these elements? Because I find them very fucking interesting, man. Because I don't know anyone else who does that. So where did you find these combination of elements of, I guess, slice of life, more chill elements, quote unquote, and then there's that explosion of violence or punctuation of violence? Where did that come from? What inspired you to combine these elements?
Well, I mean, I didn't actually realize that until you you said it. No. I honestly don't. It just feels so natural to me. That sounds wrong. That's not what I mean, but you know what I meant. Anyway, it's like, I feel violence is often used as a way to pick up the pace, or a way to deliver sort of an impactful moment in a film that at least an audience will definitely be captivated by and will accept as a satisfying conclusion or beginning to a film. But I always see violence sometimes as a metaphor. So I feel like, again, another nerdy thing. But actually no, this is not too bad, lah. Not too bad compared to the grain thing. That's fucking insane. But the thing I see this as is because, what if basically my film asks one question that is like, what if you could not, sorry, what if you took too long to forgive somebody, right? And you never got the chance again. Okay? So in this case, the violence is a metaphor of disconnection. So what happens if you had an argument with somebody and you could never talk about it again? Right? How could you rebuild that bridge when you really don't have the chance? And in this case, well, spoiler. Right. In this case, Aizat's character is still feeling the raw sting of that betrayal, right? And he comes out and he says a few choice words right to us, right? And Lukman is in the background, and then the explosion happens, and that car goes pew, lovely Mercedes, and he's just left staring there at the end of his friendship, right? And you're looking at that, and I want people to sort of feel the emptiness of it, because When violence is used intentionally, not just as something to pick up a pace or to be part of a plot or to be something that is, moving the story along, or something stylish, which I always love. There's all kinds of films I love. But if you're using it as a metaphor within your writing, not just the production, I feel like that could give some impact to it, because it's my way of saying, what if you could never speak to that person again? Right? Maybe he's dead, maybe he's not dead. I don't know. I feel like he is. Yeah, right. So there's so many different ways that you can take this. So for me, violence tends to be that metaphor that's necessary. And I've yet to do an action scene in my films. I want. Okay, Wolf lah, but it's not really as poised as yours lah. But for me, yeah, no, but for me, I feel like at least there's a metaphor. Like even with Wolf, the action is meant to symbolize his inexperience, not his prowess, right? So there's a difference, and I feel like Sunflowers is another thing where violence does not seem to have a place, but the metaphor hopefully comes across as it's meant to lah.
I will say one thing that, especially with the sunflowers bloom, what I like about the violence or the moment, right, is it really comes off like, see, here's the thing about violence, because I do a lot of action in my short films, and I've always believed, because I have parents, they're very traditional. So the second they look at violence or people stabbing, killing, they're like, why la everything stabbing, killing, என்ன கொன்னுட்டே இருக்கானுங்க படத்துல, என்ன குத்திக்கிட்டே இருக்கானுங்க படத்துல, சுட்டுக்கிட்டே இருக்கானுங்க படத்துல. Everything for them is like, why everyone is dying in the film. I would like to ask you this, maybe your perspective, because for me, I don't understand why we tend to view violence as if it's not a form of human expression. Because if friendship, love, and all these other positive stuff, even heartbreak, all these are treated as human expressions, violence is always treated as, oh, but that's the weird, that's the bad thing, that's the thing that monsters do. But the thing is, I'm sure, look, man, you, me, every one of us, at some point in life, someone pisses us off, someone cuts us off in the road while you're driving, and a part of you thinks of wringing his neck like a chicken. It happens. But the thing is, of course, we understand not to act on it. But I think what kind of annoys me is when people act like violence has no place at all in certain stories. And what I like about you is that you don't give a fuck about that, and you're like, no, it belongs here. It's part of human expression. And I just want maybe your thoughts on violence as a valid human expression, and how it fits into your work.
Well, in my work, it always represents I feel anyway lah. My opinion is that films should be things that do not reflect the author's blindness. My explanation for that is more of like when you fall in love, when you are new into a relationship, or when you're in a relationship that is particularly strong, you are affected by a certain blindness. Now, of course, you are choosing said blindness. You may not see certain flaws in your partner. You may not see certain flaws outside of your situation, even because of your partner's, the way they fill that void, right? And then you can maybe handle those things together when you eventually see them. But it is a bit insane that we do not view violence the same way. Because while violence is definitely a negative thing in our society, it is not something that we should regard as invisible or claim that doesn't exist or has, like you said, no place. There's a reason why we have armed officers. If there was no place for violence, they would not walk around with guns. And security guards wouldn't have batons and wouldn't look at me every time I walk into my office. There's a whole different point of view when you see that, right? Yeah, sure. No one thankfully is getting into fist fights on the street these days. But the expression of violence is always there. Always. Someone might say something hurtful, but they may not mean to act, but they'll say it. They'll say it. You know what I mean? And there's always incidents, I'm sure, that we read in the news, that we see, that of unfortunate escalations of violence. But if we affect blindness to it and just be like, oh, that person got it wrong, and we have no chance of getting it wrong because we see it, Ah, I'm like, I promise you, when something happens that pushes you to a point, everybody is capable of it. And we have to face that fact and educate ourselves on what is an appropriate way to handle these things. But if our films don't reflect that, if a creative is not brave enough to at least put that there and don't say anything, just put it there and express what you feel about it, and people come to the conclusion, that's something for them to think about. And art should be a reflection of not just the world we live in, but a way for us to better ourselves. Because if you don't acknowledge something exists, you can't try to improve it. Yelah.
I really love how you put it, because that's very true, and it's something that, I think even in my short films where it's more action based, right? And people are expecting action. They want to see people kick ass or whatever. I don't like putting meaningless action. For me, if yes, gratuitous. It's just, oh, so much. For me, action and violence is it should be treated as it is, which is that it's a ugly expression that's natural, an ugly expression that's natural.
That's a quote right there.
Yeah, yeah, right there. It's ugly, but it is natural. It's part of us, and I don't know why again people would like to pretend like rude words don't exist or violence does not exist.
It's like being in a room where you don't feel like you should be in. And I don't know why he's smiling. Maybe he knows something. It's even though you're uncomfortable, you're in that room. You cannot pretend like none of that is not happening.
Exactly. Right? You cannot.
I will not elaborate.
You can't turn a blind eye to it. It might be right next to you, behind you, around you. I'm so sorry. None of you understand this. It's okay. All right. But yeah, so I do like that the mixing of these elements, right? So adding on to that, a lot of your films also, another quality I've seen is that they revolve around relationships and especially friendships. And I do want to ask you, what do you think? Because I think there are different types of filmmakers. There are those who focus on spectacle, and then there are those who focus on the human relationship, and those who focus on spectacle. And I don't think it's anything bad at all. Nothing at all that's bad. But I do think a lot of times with short films, maybe it's because it's short films, maybe because they are short films where you only have 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. People are like, okay, I can't really do a deep exploration of this fella's character, but what I can do is I can have this moment where something happens or whatever, right? I've done that. I think we've all done that. But I like that your short films tend to be more human focused. What do you think is the importance? Where do you think filmmakers should maybe look at creating solid human characters or people and relationships? And what do you think the importance of that is in film?
I mean, to me, it's like I don't think we need to overcomplicate things for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Like everyone's talking about the Odyssey right now. And if you actually read the scripture of the Odyssey, which is obviously 3,000 years old, so I wouldn't count on much diversity there anyway. But the Odyssey really is about a guy trying to get home.
Yes.
It's not just like, okay, everyone's going to see the giants, the gods, the fighting, the war. That is just the lovely little coloring on it. It's really a guy trying to get home. So as long as we boil down plots to the core, we can find the emotion. Eventually we'll find, okay, what relationship works where. And maybe just because I'm in this current time of life where friendships tend to be a very prominent thing in my life, maybe that's reflecting in my art. Maybe I couldn't know. I'll leave it to my friends to let me know. But it's also just about finding relationships that allow you to accentuate an experience. Because if you have something that's not going to put out an experience, if you're just bored sitting in like a place you don't want to be and you just feel like I don't have any inspiration anywhere, your film will reflect that and it will come across that way. But if you find something that really excites you or you feel strongly about, or maybe it is a past, I can't believe I'm going to say trauma, but it's like trauma we know with short films becomes a sounding board.
Of course.
everyone just wants to inflict the trauma on the short film and like show you how crazy it is. And while I do feel that a lot of discussions on mental health are very valid, this is a small sidebar. While those discussions are valid, I do think we could, at the very least, try to be a bit more creative with how we tell those stories. I'll leave that there because that could become an entire podcast on its own. But yeah, just for me, I think once you understand the power of a relationship, whether it's a friendship or something more, you will be able to find emotions in between. The liminal space.
Yes. No, but yeah, no, that's very true. I think a lot of the times with people, like I like that you brought up the Odyssey, where yeah, at the end of the day, it's just a guy trying to get home. It's Odysseus trying to get home to his wife, his family, and it takes him several years to get back. Like the journey, all the things that happen is just about a man trying to get home. And a lot of times, I think with our films, if you can try to almost boil them down to like a sentence or two, you can kind of understand where the core of it is, like the core of a short film. And I think that's very important, right? But also something that we brought up a bit earlier, which is the kind of cinema that you like personally, right? That is reflected in your work. So, what do you personally love about short films that are maybe more focused on human moments, slice of life, and what in terms of the genre that maybe genre, I think, yeah, that you call slow cinema. Maybe you can explain what do you personally see in it, and what do you draw from it, and what do you maybe think others can learn from it?
And so I think like slow cinema and short films tend to become very intertwined sometimes. But also, I do feel they kind of carry a risk that no one really talks about. And I think the risk is because short films have a limited timeline, a limited time frame in which you can tell the story, and slow cinema takes up a lot of space. It takes up a lot of space when your character is staring into nothing, or at least like that's what it looks like, right? And on the script, it's difficult sometimes to bring that emotion across. I can't just write Aizat stares into the sky. He's going to be like, why? Right? And for me, like slow cinema and all these kinds of things have always been something that interests me. But I think we have a common inspiration in Takeshi Kitano. We've watched a lot of Kitano films on our podcast, on our separate podcasts, and we've talked about his film Hanabi. We've talked about his directorial debut Violent Cop, and we've talked about Sonatine. Yes, and those three films I noticed also are very much possibly considered slow cinema, but they are still gangster films. They're still action films, and they are still violent as hell. And I think for me, now that I'm thinking about it, it might be an inspiration for me too, because that kind of that stylistic blend that you don't think would work kind of comes across. And I think a lot of short films are too afraid sometimes to blend genres they think don't work. I guarantee you, without any research right now, the highest yield of short films would probably come from coming of age, slice of life, anything to do with mental health or trauma, bullying, of course. And those short films come out, and it doesn't feel like it either feels like an internet troll went crazy for the bull. Yeah, or like a PSA. I have seen short films where there is a PSA at the end. We were there, I believe, together. Right, got you. So to me, I'm like, if you're gonna put a PSA at the end, I don't get it. I genuinely don't understand the purpose of making a short film, which is probably entertaining, but it's not anymore because now it's just a PSA. And I think once you understand that all these things have a purpose to like, like if you're able to blend genres in a creative way that a feature film would not risk, because there's a lot of money in feature films. There's a lot of people who have put down a lot of cash to and have expectations. Not everybody is Christopher Nolan, and not everybody can demand certain things, right? And now Christopher Nolan has very well earned his demands. But if he was a nobody and he said, I want to do a film about dreams and a horror film about dreams where they're going down a level every single time, they'll be like, how about you take your script down 3 more levels to the ground floor? Yeah.
Get your ass out of here. No, but that's true though. Like in terms of finding that sort of middle ground. Like I like that you brought up back Takeshi Kitano. Like what I love about his films is that there's a mix of comedy, there's a mix of slice of life, and then there are these punctuations of violence. And for me, I just to bring back also on what we spoke about violence. For me, violence, I like to view it at this point as kind of like punctuation. It punctuates the moment. It adds, it not only it adds, it stops, even it can halt the film, or it can add something to the film, but it's a punctuation. But that's not the whole film, right? It's not the whole film. There are punctuations, but at the end of the day, it should be about people, moments of people, and living through their lives. And I do think that when it comes to slow cinema, in terms of even using that as a term and as a genre on its own, I think what people can learn is, and it's something that I think we brought up, I think I brought up to you earlier, is to just slow down, maybe. Slow down the moments. Even if it's a 5 minute short film, have moments where the character is just maybe not moving, maybe hold the frame, maybe just hold that shot. You don't know, like, you don't know what can be said with just silence and letting a moment breathe. I think because we live in such an attention deficit timeline, the people don't want moments to breathe. They want immediate answers. You tell me now itself. What is it? What is what you want to say? Why is this, why is fella like he just there standing only? Like, people want answers. People want immediate the dopamine hit lah. They want that. But a lot of times with art, like if you think of a painting is just that one moment that the painter saw, and they took their time to paint it out, and it's just a moment, a frame of time that they just captured and immortalized. And I think with film, it's multiple frames, but we can choose to hold one. We can choose to make a frame a painting. Right? Like if we were talking about every frame a painting, like the idea is you can choose to make that one frame beautiful and just hold it and let us sit there. Let us sit there, let us breathe, let us just live this space. Let us feel this space. Let us exhale, inhale, right? I feel that's very, I think that's something people can maybe take away and maybe even try to incorporate in their works. I think you're not, and I don't think you're supposed to give up fast paced. It's more like learn to incorporate. Incorporate slower moments. But with that, I think I would like to ask maybe just one final question. Again, we started with a very generic one. I'm gonna ask a very generic one also. We end with a generic one also. Okay, which is, what do you hope people take away from Where Sunflowers Bloom? What do you hope people take away with them?
I mean, I hope Where Sunflowers Bloom feels like it sees them. Like it's something that it doesn't feel like it's a difficult watch or something that is unwieldy to really tackle, even though it is 18 minutes. I hope it is a film that is relatable to everybody, and I hope it is a film that, weirdly enough, would feel honest, because it is honest from my perspective. But hopefully, there are other people that are able to find a bit of something for themselves in it. And probably I didn't mention this yet, but I should have said, there's a final conversation in the film that I cut out, and I play the song over it instead, where they're walking towards camera. It's the money shot, yeah. And I call it the money shot. So it was scripted. It was all scripted. I cut it all out. Right. Yeah. No, yeah, no. That's actually what I wanted to say. The reason I cut it out is because the dialogue there was actually very personal to me. And the reason I cut it out is because I felt I was imposing my experience on the audience. And I didn't want to do that, because I wanted that moment to be something that every audience member can have for themselves. They can literally put whatever words they want, and it could be the conversation that they never had.
That's actually genuinely beautiful. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, that's actually quite. I really love how you did that, because I actually rewatched it again right before we have this podcast, and when that moment happened, I was thinking like, huh, did Monish just ask them to improvise and let them talk, because they are friends in real life? So I was like, is this an improv thing where it's like, come, just talk whatever and we film? Or is it scripted? And I like the fact that you said it is scripted and that you took out the moment just so that we can superimpose maybe our own lines that we want to say, the words that we couldn't say to our friends, which I think ultimately, I guess I'd also like to ask, would you say this short film is basically what we want or what we desire to say to people in our lives that maybe we couldn't, or where was that coming from for you?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. It's probably a call mostly to people to not take too long to have certain difficult conversations with other people who you think are relevant to your life going forward, who you see in your life going forward, and just have the difficult conversation, because there might be a lot of good that comes across from having those difficult conversations. And just to add on, I did give Aizat and Lukman all the license to improv, which surprisingly they did not improv as much as you would think. They stuck to the script pretty handily. And the approach we took with that was Aizat stuck to the script 100%, and Lukman stuck to the script 0%. And Lukman was only responding to him. So Lukman stayed on script by responding to him. And then I realized, I was like, wait, no, everything's still a script. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I hope they take away.
And so, with that, that will be the end of our podcast for today. Thank you all so much for watching, and don't worry, we'll have new episodes coming out once every month. We try lah, we try We
Sharvin will be back.
yeah. He'll be back. I won't be here, or maybe he'll be back. He won't be here. We'll try to get all three hosts, and also we're also looking at getting new guests coming along, and we're talking to people. We're trying to coordinate that, but yeah, do stick around, and we appreciate the support so far. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you guys next time.